Santosiri, and this is my final thesis presentation for my Master of Fine Arts in Dance Choreography. We have an intimate affair tonight, a very tight-knit group, so I appreciate you coming. The dancers have worked really, really hard. I owe them a lot. They have dedicated so much of their time and energy and passion to my project, and I am super thankful. I know that you guys will see that their love and passion for what they're doing, and I know, knowing them personally, you guys know that also. So many of you share the passion for dance that these dancers do up on stage. Thanks, bud. My thesis about the intersection of physics and dance and life and science and how much we see that. I truly believe that dancers have to be instinctual physicists the entire time. You know, every tiny little adjustment, every catch from a fall. If you're dancing with a new partner, you instinctually have to feel what's going on. And I think they probably don't realize, and I think sometimes the audience takes for granted how much is just innate and natural. They're making millions of tiny little decisions every moment that they're on stage. So that's something that I investigated and played with among many other intersections of physics within our larger universe and dance. So without further ado, I present Inertia, Movement Come to Life. Thank you again, and we'll take it away to the dancers.
It's funny. You're so beautiful. It's all very formal here.
Okay.
Can you just talk about how you came up with the concept and kind of like the choreographic process?
Sure. Sorry, what was your name?
Kristen.
Kristen. Oh, I know her online, but I've never met you
I
in
know,
person.
No. I was thinking that too. I was like, I don't think we've met in person.
All about her.
But I recognize you.
Absolutely. I recognized your name when it came through on the ticket. Can I just say that Kristen was the very first ticket sale? So, yes. I'm going to print it out and let you know, you frame your first dollar. I might have to do that with your,
I would be honored.
with your little ticket sale receipt. So where did I get the theme and just the idea for my thesis? Is that what?
Yeah,
okay.
the idea. And like, what's your process like?
So I might have them. The concept is that I've always been drawn to physics and science and math, and I've always approached my dancing, both in my own education and in my teaching, from a very physics-based approach. Even when they're 9 or 10, I talk to them about like the shift in gravity and how you can react and change that, and what the feeling is when they get that perfect turn and they're stuck in a turn and they say, did anyone see that? Or when they say they have a bad turning day. So I always talk to them about the reason why. You know, there's always something in there. And I continually talk about the figure eights instead of the straight line ricochet. That's how the loop of that figure eight, that's the pocket where the reaction lives. When you hit and bounce off of something, there's not nearly enough time for you to think about what to do. That's the moment when you fall down the stairs and you break your wrist because you go like this, right? And you know about halfway down that you made the wrong decision. But if we really work in a circular motion, that gives you a split second to sort of curve and mold the energy. If anything's constant, I know people say death and taxes, but it's gravity for me. It exists everywhere, in everything, in every person, whether it's living or not. And I think, like I said before, dancers have such an innate understanding of gravity, and those figure eights, even if they don't realize it, they know it deep inside themselves. We've all caught ourselves from falling. If you do something with a different partner, you're like, ooh, I need to get used to this partner. Well, it's the sharing of gravity, it's the transfer of weight, the transfer of energy that they're making those decisions about. So I've always been a little obsessed with physics. I'm kind of a physics nerd. And again, it's besides family, dance has been also a big constant for me, and I feel like physics and math and science is a constant and just reality, and you can count on it also. There's always like a pattern to it, these reoccurring patterns and stuff. So I find it comforting to find those reoccurring patterns. I'm not sure if you can see it in the movement. Onto my process. Okay. So, like I said about the music, I'll listen to something and I'll see flashes of movement or a certain color. And as I continue to listen, those expand upon themselves. It starts like a little hot spot, a little dot, and it expands upon itself until they bleed into each other and create transitions. And I might throw it over to the dancers. I did come in the first day and say, hey, this is how I work, just so you know. It's gonna be like this. I promise I'll seam it together. And I've been working with Shannon longer than some of the other dancers. Hi. Sorry to say your name. I've been working with Shannon longer than some of the other dancers, and as I was explaining, I saw her do a little head nod like, she's not lying, you guys. I even gave the example of, I might walk in and say, where's the sticky note that I had in my hand 2 days ago? And I expect you guys to like remember the movement because I need that now. I figured out what piece it goes to. I figured out where it belongs. And before it was just a flash and I needed it to grow by itself. So there's definitely a piece that's like that also. So would you guys like to say anything about the process as long as it's nice? I know there was frustrating days, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
I feel like it was a unique experience, like in that each of us had our own unique experience in the process, because I think we all have, thank you. Hello. We all have very different schedules, very different like commitments throughout the week and the months that we worked. And I think that for some of us, we were learning some off of video and some of us were in person. And so it was finding those ways of like connection when we did cross paths in the studio, and like how it, you know, came full circle in the end was, I think, really beautiful, because we all had different unique experiences, and then it did form together to create this one picture, you know, and then to like find that like circularity, you know, like we're all on our different cycles, and then it's like you do find the end together, even if you're going in different directions. So I think that was kind of fun to see happen.
An example of that with opposite schedules, you know, if you're going to work with high-level professionals, they're working already, you know, so I kind of wanted dancers at this level, and I was starting to cater to them, and that was sort of an experiment in and itself. I have this group of 3 and that group of 3 and this group of 3. Can we really make it cohesive on the 2 rehearsals where we had everybody in the room? 1 rehearsal where we had everybody in the room. We had only ever rehearsed together 1 time until tech. So that was also a challenge for me, cleaning each group, but cleaning them in a way that was identical to the other group. And that was really interesting. So I have to hand it to the dancers also, that when I was off doing other production things that I wasn't really used to doing, this is a first for me, with the level of professionalism they had to pull out their notebooks and make sure that the groups that had been cleaned were cleaned the same way. And so I got to really give it to them as far as coming together as a group and them taking it upon themselves to make sure that they looked cohesive, and that just speaks to the pride in their own work and their passion and dedication. So, like, I think, had you met Summer once or twice?
Me?
Yeah, Rachel.
We crossed paths like 2 times.
2. They've met twice over the past couple of months. Yeah.
It was wild. Wild ride. I have a follow-up question, and then I'm gonna get off the stage. But after that, is everybody here a professional dancer? Are people in college? Like, what's everyone? Is there a mix?
So everyone's been working professionally, whether it be short or long amount of time. We do have some more recent college graduates who are starting out on their journey, and then we have some seasoned professionals who I'm quite well seasoned, who have been doing this for years and years, and they found their flow, and they have their gigs, and they have their normal things that they go back to every year. So, and I think that when Rachel said we had our unique experiences, I also think that they were able to learn from each other. I know in speaking to some of the newer dancers, they were really excited and grateful to be working with some of the other dancers, all of them high caliber across the board, but just to be in the room with people of that level experience, I hope was really enjoyable for them also. So.
You're old. I'm old. You too.
Well, thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
I did 1/3 of the show anyways.
Okay, you have a microphone on, remember?
I have 3 things to say.
Well, who are you?
My name is Luca.
Nice to meet you, Luca. I'm Dory. Your parents must be very proud of you.
You realize they're right here.
Yeah, that's me. What was your question?
I have 3 things to say. Number 1, I'll give it 100 out of 100.
Good job, ladies. Good job. I think it's because of the extra study material and resources you brought them from the library. They still have the ballet book in the dressing room. I think they reviewed it before the show. It was helpful, right?
Number 2, how can they see through those masks?
How can you see through the masks? Well, they kind of can. So although the lighting makes it look very opaque, it actually is netting. It's mesh, just like the dress is. And we wore them a couple times in the studio, but we can't really mimic stage lights. It's very different. You go from extreme dark to extreme light in your face. And the material that we used reflected way more light than we expected, which means it became very bright for them. I have never worn the hood. I should have worn the hood and said, I did it. I saw that. Would any of the dancers like to speak about their experience wearing the hood? I feel like it would be a better answer than mine. Okay. Good job, thank you. Okay, Shelby, there you go.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit different. We did, Rachel and I did some partnering, so it was getting used to the fabric as far as like contact and slipperiness. But yeah, definitely we were like trying to flip on and off the lights in the studio of like, is this more like side lighting, or is this, because we had tech on Monday and then we had rehearsal after that. So we were trying to mimic, but yeah, it was kind of reflective, and some parts it was darker, but we just had to very much like still watch each other wide-eye. And
it added to the
yeah.
style. I told you guys to have bird heads, so it added to the style of it.
It was kind of fun. I was very like surprised. I saw some surprising moments from my colleagues. I was like, oh, like on stage.
But
People were
you
getting
reacted
into it
quickly like a dancer using physics. So
Yes.
just like the partnering, you had to change. Thank you. Anyone else want to talk about their hood experience?
I have another.
Okay, you have another question. Yeah, just hold it like this.
I actually have 2 more now.
2 more now. You have a follow-up? Okay, 2 more and then.
Did the dancers, did the fabric hurt your eyes a little?
No? All good?
No, it's very soft fabric.
Okay.
Yeah, I made sure that it was super soft and super stretchy, and sometimes netting can be very hard and poking you, kind of like the underneath of a ballet tutu. But this was not quite as tightly knit as a panty is, but it was definitely the softest one we could find. It's a very good question.
Last question. Or maybe.
So, last question.
How did you change the lighting so fast?
Okay. Our stage manager and lighting designer extraordinaire. So her name is Lauren. And on Monday, we started programming. She has a big light board. Maybe you can see it afterwards.
Yeah, afterwards, Luca, I'll show you what I did.
Yay!
She slides it up and down. She changes the side lights. She changes the color of the wall, the color of the floor. She can even say that it should take 5 seconds to do this change, 10 seconds, everything. So we sat there for hours and hours on Monday getting just the right amount.
Okay.
And we had to troubleshoot some unexpected problems, but we did it. The dancers were very patient with us. But again, yes, exactly. But we ended up pulling it off, and she did great. Okay. What?
I duel you to a game of Operation.
You want to play Operation when we get home?
I duel you.
You're on.
It's on.
They're going to cut this out. Do you want to go get a bottle and you can have a refill? I thought that's what you were talking about.
Okay, 2 little questions.
Hi, and what's your name?
I'm Mom. No, Janet. So I followed the pieces carefully, but the first piece, the meaning of that word, because I asked your dad who speaks Spanish, and he gave me a word that didn't make sense, but then I said, I didn't thought, then he gave me another word. So what's the meaning of the word of the first piece?
It means wheat.
Wheat. Okay,
Like
because
the grain.
that's what I saw was,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Blowing in the wind.
yeah, So that's what I got from
Yes.
the movement from that. Okay, so that's good. So I'm not crazy. He said something like it was a sword or something. I'm like, no.
A stop. Like,
Yeah, there
might
was
be
a point.
yeah. There was some
Okay.
waving. You always picture walking
Right.
through tall
But I just
tall
like
grass
that.
or a wheat field. There's no way you're not going to go like this
Right.
as you walk through it.
Okay.
So some
then
of that.
the
Yeah.
other question was that you talked about your rehearsals having to, piece here and piece there. And what I admired about all of the pieces was that, yes, there was unison and everybody came together when they were supposed to, but everybody's individual dancing stood out as their individual dancing. And I love that. I hate to see everybody look exactly the same. I realize they're supposed to all be doing the same thing, but I like to see the individual. So do you think the way you ran those rehearsals helped in that way? Or is there something you do in your rehearsal that encourages the dancers to be their own
Possibly. I mean, I definitely like it clean, and I like them hitting the shapes as it fits their body.
Right.
Trying not to do all the same proportion and the same shape. It has to fit that person, or else it's not going to happen. We can only make the shapes that we can make with the proportion of our own body, our own facility.
Right.
But I do try to encourage the dancers to be themselves. I actually had a conversation with one of them. I'm not going to say their name. But I said, I feel like you're holding back. And I know that I can tell by looking at you that you were very talented and very good as a child, very hard worker, very passionate. And I know this happened to me. I feel like you might have been told to hold back because you stand out too much. And I feel like that's detrimental not only to their artistry, but to them as a person. And I have never asked a dancer to hold their talent or their passion back to fit in or to be the same, or because they're making somebody else not look like a good dancer. I've never asked them to lower themselves for sameness. If anything, I feel like it inspires people to rise when that happens. And I had a conversation with the dancer about that, and I feel like it did sort of open up a little bit. But I've never asked one of my dancers to kind of dim their light because they stood out too much. Like I said, I've found that it actually inspires the other dancers. They look around and say, oof, look at that person, look at that person. I better, get my act together.
Yeah.
But again, I want the round arm, but the round arm looks different on everybody. So I try to go with that. And I
the
actually
way they
think,
get to it.
I feel like it actually looks more harmonious and natural and more comforting to the eye when they're making their round arm, when they're making their shape.
It's much appreciated. I felt like I saw each dancer's individual thing, and I thought it was really cool. But I'm the mom. I'm supposed to think that. But anyways, I just noticed that.
Picked wheat for a couple different reasons. Can I talk about that?
Yes. Explain wheat.
So I rarely get inspiration from random outside things. I rarely take this and want to make a story. And Trago was actually the first piece that I made people. Like they were actual people. And it took me by surprise, and I didn't expect it. But sometimes you just have to go with it because it's forming itself. And if you resist, it's not going to be good. So I just went with it, and I realized that it sort of based off the Picasso painting, Wheat Field with Cypress, where you have the cypress tree here, and he went back to that wheat field many times and painted it in different seasons with the wind shifting this way or that way. And there's never any people in there, but it has to be farmed. There has to be workers for that field, but he never painted people. And I just sort of would oftentimes imagine people in the paint, who would be there, who would be in the painting.
Okay.
And workers didn't conjure themselves up, their children and their emerging adults conjured themselves up. So I feel like it was, you're in the field, you're running, you're playing, even as you come through that young adult, when you go to the town or the village, you're expected to be a little bit more mature, but when you're running through the fields with your best friends, you can still sort of encompass that, light
Yeah.
lightheaded, child inside you, like when you get together with your friends from elementary school, and it just sort of like maturity sometimes goes out the window. But then also when I was researching, the wheat stalk is kind of defies physics in its existence. The weight of it should not hold up. It shouldn't, with how thin the stalk is, and scientists even study it to figure out how it holds water and how it releases certain nutrients even into the air in order to adapt the environment. It doesn't adapt to an environment, it actually makes the environment adapt to the wheat stalk. It's very, very cool. So then I kind of got wrapped up in that, and some of the shapes and formations are actually, if you zoom in, if you slice a wheat grain and zoom in, and you'll see those kind of geometric patterns. So that's where some of the patterning came from for that too.
Okay.
You raised a nerd.
I did.
So yeah.
Very good.
So that's it.
Okay, thanks.
You give that to the next person?
Yep.
And tell them one thing about the program is that it is the view outside of the assignment. I don't know what that means. Hi,
I'm Michael.
Michael, Dory, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So I have a nerd question for you. Yes. So you reference being a math and science nerd and stuff, and in the first piece, I noticed it was near the end of the second song. There's a formation that instantly was like, oh, that's an ode to the Fibonacci spiral. Like that was very clear to me. Of course.
My earrings broke. Yeah. My husband bought me the golden ratio Fibonacci secret, like hanging, and the one of them broke off, and I was so upset because I wanted to wear them today.
So my question is, what other kind of references do you have more to the Fibonacci sequence? Because retroactively, I found myself wondering, oh, I wonder if she had done did she do different, like 1, 1, 2, 3?
Yes.
You know? Oh, you did. Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
I found myself retroactively like, did she do that at all? Okay, cool. And then what other kind of math references did you make?
Things,
yeah.
So it's the Nautilus, and it repeats in nature over and over again. It's perfectly proportioned in every way. It's the Mary Poppins of sequences, and Fibonacci sequence mathematically, the golden ratio as far as composition goes for artists. And I think it's so beautiful, and I think the repetition is just so comforting. I know people find comfort in different things, and the repetition of that sequence, no matter what it's in, whether it's a flower or a wheat grain or your DNA or whatever, I think that's just really comforting to know that that's a constant and that's consistent. But like you said, I did do formations based on the numbers that make up the sequence. And then even in the last piece where you see their arms and everything, so that's actually, that's a mathematical formula. And it's sections of the graph that I chopped up and sort of layered on each other. And you'll see two groups at one point match up in this sideways thing. And that just ended up being the common denominator of those sections of the graph when they
Very cool.
So after you repeat it a certain amount of times, it matches up. So that was sort of that. They don't know this, by the way. Sometimes I'm afraid to tell them what the piece is about too early, because as a dancer, then you try to make it what you've been told it is. So I tend to hold that back for quite a while, and then I come in. Well, sometimes I don't know also. And then I think I came in and said, you guys, I know what the piece is about. Which is just sort of my process, which is why I just sort of have to go with it and trust it. But yes, certain parts are completely just instinct and on a whim in the studio, and then some parts are calculated as far as how I want to build the formation, but what the formation is made of as far as movement is created in the studio. So it's a little bit of both.
Sure. So. Cool. My second question, completely unrelated. What made you decide which order to put the 3 pieces in?
Yes. So I originally was going to do a 4th piece, and that was sort of not dark, but intense, sharp lines and angles, not necessarily linear, but very sharp edged compared to the others. And so I was trying to find the ebb and flow and what I would want as an audience member. What note do I want to end on? Which two pieces are too alike to go together? And so that's how I sort of put it together. And I felt the first piece sort of begins, they're facing this way. The light source the whole time from the painting is from the upper left corner. So which is why they sort of call to it, and they reference that corner a lot. So that piece starts with a sort of calling from the sunrise, early morning wheat field. And I felt that was a good beginning, a good starting point. And then I feel like the one with the flower lotus is also a little bit more lighthearted, and it just made sense for Synapses to go in the middle. Because this matters. I think when you put your playlist of music together, you have to make sure you go like this. And I think that watching a dance concert is the same way. So that was my process in thinking about that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Good questions. Do you have questions for the dancers?
I'm going to come up and ask.
Oh, okay, Paul. Paul is our videographer.
Nope, it's all good. How you doing?
The dancers brought it to me.
Right? So I have a question.
Okay.
So where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? Because we've been talking a lot about
job interview question, Paul.
No, this is awesome. This was a great night. Mm-hmm. So where do you see yourself in the future?
So the reason I wanted to get my master's was actually a family and life shift. I had looked into it about 10 years ago, and it just wasn't the right time. I wanted to start a family, and I knew that I wanted to be a very, very specific type of mom for my son in the first couple of years. And as you can probably ask my family and my husband, I'm so passionate about dance that it completely takes over me sometimes, and I have trouble with the hyper focus. And it was actually a concern that if I didn't step away, I would not be able to focus on my child enough. So I did take a step away for quite a few years. So I put the research on where to get my master's aside, and began teaching kids in the evening, which is something I didn't really do a lot before. I dabbled in it, but it became my job. And as my son got older and started kindergarten, I realized, oh wait, I'm not with him all day long. He comes home from kindergarten and I'm off teaching from 4 to 9. Like this isn't working for me anymore. And so I thought maybe I'll become a professor, I'll teach college dance. I definitely have the experience and knowledge. But my bachelor's degree is not in dance. It's in design and architecture. So they were like, what do you mean? Like, and it says experience and real world stuff matters, but they don't really mean that.
Well, your experience
they just have to
tonight.
say that. It's like an asterisk on the side. They have to say that. But so after speaking to people, they said, well, you're not going to get a teaching job without a master's in dance. No matter how much life experience and the caliber of experience you have, they want the paper to say dance or choreography. Yeah. So I went back to that 10 years ago dream and decided to do it. And I'm hoping to teach during the day and still be able to be with my family all evening. And then of course I wanted to jump back into the professional choreography world. It's been quite a while since I've mounted a professional piece, and it was actually really intimidating at first because I did take that full step away. And when I tried to come back, COVID hit, and it was another couple of years. So this was kind of thrusting me back into working choreographically on a professional level, and these ladies really showed me a lot of grace through some of those moments where I doubted myself. So, but that,
very good.
Hopefully I'll be doing that for a while.
Yes. Very good, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see your work. I think that's it. Do you guys have questions for the dancers? Anything like that? Oh, yes. Luca, again.
He just wants the microphone.
Of course I do. I am not kidding, I do.
Okay. There you go.
What were the 3 main parts about?
What were the 3 separate pieces about?
Yeah. Which scenes were, what is like the main part of it?
Like what's the story or what it means? Okay. So
To the dancers.
what it means to the dancers? Well, I'll tell you my take on it and then they can tell you. Sound good?
I mean, like the 3 sections, like.
The 3 different sections. Okay, yeah.
What?
I can do it. Yeah, I got it. Okay, so although I plan ahead as far as like I want to relate this mathematical sequence and this formation, I don't, and they can tell you, I don't really do a lot of planning ahead because my brain just doesn't work that way. I get the little sparks and they connect together. And I came in, I don't know, 3 weeks ago after a couple months and said, I know what the piece is about, let me tell you. I finally figured it out. So it's actually kind of a lens zooming in.
Okay.
So the wheat field, we have the people and the plants that they live among.
Okay.
The very last piece, they encompass the characteristics of the plants. So they are no longer human anymore. They are patterning themselves a lot like a time-lapse video in the beginning. I don't know if you've watched those before. And then the end is sort of like those photosensitive flowers that turn, kind of like sunflowers. Everybody knows about the sunflower, which is why they're waving back and forth and sort of rotating and doing this. And then if we zoom in even closer to the second one, the one with the creepy masks.
Yeah.
So I had started that piece at the very beginning, and then I told them I have to put it away. It's not time, it's not right, and I'm just not feeling it. I like it, I want to do it, but not yet. So then I came in and I finished that piece pretty quickly compared to the others. Some of them were very shocked I finished it that quickly.
Okay.
But then I figured out what that was. Don't tap it, it's working. And it zooms in even more. And that piece was actually a little bit about my process. They're no longer, well, they're living.
Okay.
But they no longer have the human attributes that they did before. And I figured out that it's the neurons firing when I get those little visions. And then synapsis obviously is the like chemical reaction that releases so that they can slide along each other and find that connection. And you'll see that the duet is coming together and pulling apart and coming together and pulling apart. And at the end, with their little snaky thing, they catch on, and they catch on. And then they're kind of guided to the light about what that idea actually is. So yeah, that's sort of, I figured out that was my process through this, and that's the first time I realized what my choreographic process was. I didn't really know. I just thought I was running on instinct and I would go in and I would do that. But now I feel like when I start a new project, I'll trust it a little bit more because I know that that's where the flashes come from, and I know eventually they're going to come together. And just one more second. I'm almost done with your question. It was a very good question. And I'm not sure if you've ever like YouTubed a video, like searched on YouTube for a video of neurons finding themselves or finding each other. But it's beautiful, but it's also like tragic. They look so desperate to find each other, and they're moving along this liquid and firing here and there. And yeah, it's just, I almost get sad watching the video sometimes because I'm like, you can do it just a little over to the left. And you know, they want so much to find that connection. So what was did you have one more? This has to be the last one probably. No?
No, but I just, let me explain what I've heard.
Okay.
So in the first one, they do have their human bodies. Second one, they don't. Third one, they're sunflowers.
The third piece? Yes. So they're humans, then they're not human bodies, and then they're the flowers at the end. That's exactly right. Good job.
Nice.
Okay. Good job. And we should give that back to Paul.
You're welcome.